Hey, you're probably wondering why I have this. It's not a review key or anything. Basically, I had Fate Excel of the Umbral Star at the top of my game queue on Gamefly, but for whatever reason, when it was time for them to ship games out for the day, they gave me this instead, and I still don't know why. So, I played it for about an hour. I went out for a little bit yesterday. I can say this is definitely not one of the better Musou ports on the platform. Now, the first thing you'll notice, if you are an avid Musou player on Switch, there's no performance mode on this. If you played Fire Emblem Musou, you know that they had a quality and performance mode. Quality was 1080p and a locked 30 FPS, and then performance was 720p and a mostly locked 60 FPS. You know, to be fair, you did get a lot of particle effects and stuff on the screen, especially during some of the Musou attacks where it doesn't even matter because those are basically just cutscenes in that game. Then it would drop, but for the most part, it was very stable. It was very enjoyable to play the game in. And in portable mode, it was actually pretty stable as well. It's pretty much just the same things, like mainly just large instances of heavy particle effects, and the Musou attacks and stuff would cause it to tip or tank. Now, to be fair, with this version, you know, the base PS4 version is not that great either. However, I feel this is very choppy, and it doesn't really get any kind of benefit from being in docked mode from what I've seen. It is kind of a good thing that it performs the same way in both modes, but when you have games like Fire Emblem Musou, and to a lesser extent Hyrule Warriors, which does have worse performance than Fire Emblem, it does feel a little off that things aren't as smooth as they should be. Well, the first thing you'll notice is the menu, all of it runs in 30 FPS, which I think is really odd. I'm pretty sure the Switch can handle 3 character models and a bunch of UI stuff at 60 FPS. The whole game is locked at 30 FPS the whole time, or at least it tries to. Pretty much any time there's particle effects or anything, it drops quite a bit, which in this game, I'm sure you notice there's particle effects when you do a switch combo, so if you tag out at all any combo, the performance is going to tank quite a bit. Everything else is basically the same. There's not really anything else to say in terms of how the game functions. It's very choppy and slow. It doesn't feel as good as it should. I think the inconsistent port quality of the Musou games from Koei Tecmo definitely needs to be looked at. It feels odd to see this game be so choppy and then have stuff like Fire Emblem, which runs really well on the exact same hardware. I don't know what resolution the game is running at. It's possible that it's trying to run at 1080, which can also cause problems. That was a very big problem with Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, which is why the performance was not stable even in docked mode, and you had no real way to put it back down to 720p. Now, I'm sure if you noticed, you know that we haven't really gotten any news about like Warriors Orochi 4 DLC at all, so I don't know if that's something that will be improved later on. Apparently they did put out a few patches for this, but it's still not anywhere near what it should be. You can see how much it's dropping. Not really a whole lot going on right now either. It's not like it's unplayable by any means, it just feels incredibly choppy. You can see I can still do the things that I could do on the other versions. Also, one thing I should mention is that if you're playing this on the Joy-Cons, it can be very difficult to lock on. At least with my hands, it's very difficult to actually push the R3. And if you play this game on the other versions, you know it is very important to lock on to officers as much as possible because it locks the camera. And with how much you can move your target around while you're doing combos, you definitely want to have it on. But that can't really be held against the port because that's kind of just a problem with the way the Switch is designed. But that shouldn't be a problem if you're playing on console or dock mode. I'm not sure what engine this uses. It feels like Fire Emblem and Hyrule Warriors are like the only ones that were built for the ground up from the Switch, and maybe that's part of the reason why they run a lot better than all these other ports. However, I hear that the Dynasty Warriors 8 XL port that just dropped this week apparently performs pretty well. I think it even runs above 30 FPS in portable mode. But it's also not locked, and that can also cause problems for some people too. I do start to get headaches and stuff like that when I play games where the frame rate is wildly unstable. So if that's a problem, you definitely want to avoid this port. Like, even though the particle effects are basically non-existent, it's still having a hard time really handling anything. Particle effects in general seem to really make the Warriors Orochi 4 engine struggle. I can run the game at pretty much a locked 60 FPS on my computer. However, if I put the particles on high, A, it's a lot harder to see things, and B, it does tank quite a bit, so I'm not sure why that happens. Here it seems like there's no particle effects at all, but what little there are definitely seem to impact their performance. I think the best way for Koei to fix their ports is to lock them all at 720p regardless, and just make sure the frame rate is as stable as possible. There isn't really any Musou game on the Switch that runs at 60 FPS locked, but the best you can get is Fire Emblem, which I played that game for like 80 hours. It never really bothered me that it was slightly inconsistent. For the most part, it was always the same scenarios, you know, like a Boro, the chick with the spear. Anytime you used her C1, that big tornado, the frame rate would tank, and that didn't really bother me that much. As long as she kept things pretty controlled, you didn't put too much junk on the screen, it was actually very enjoyable to play. And then in portable mode, it was pretty much a locked 30 FPS outside of those same very isolated scenarios as well. Here, it doesn't seem like there's any kind of real benefit to playing in docked mode, which is both a blessing and a curse. I think optimization is definitely something they need to look into for the next batch of Musou games, because it feels odd that you can't really have a definitive experience with basically any Musou game on any platform. You basically have to have like a PS4, a PC, and a Switch to really enjoy these games optimally, which I don't think is the way it should be. I feel that if I have like a PC and a Switch, I should be able to get an optimal experience, but right now that's just not possible. It's a shame. I would love to play this game again on the go, but it's just not, the performance is just not where it needs to be. So if you have this game on other versions, if you have any kind of aversion to you know, wildly inconsistent frame rates, you might want to drop off from this one and probably get Fire Emblem. That is definitely the best experience you can get in terms of an overall good performance. Anyway, that's basically it. I had to do a second take of this because my mic was muted again, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I will be returning this tomorrow in the event that I hear from somebody that they actually implement a performance mode or something. I'll probably go and buy this. Maybe it'll warrant buying all the DLC and stuff again, but right now, this is definitely not one of the best ports. I will look into getting the Dynasty Warriors 8 port, maybe when it drops in price. Apparently that port has like all of the DLC, all the costumes and everything, so $40 when you consider the game has like $200 of DLC is actually not that bad. However, I hear the performance is still all over the place and it really doesn't go above 40 FPS in most situations, so I'm not too sure about that. If I hear about patches about that and it's during a slow month or something, I'll probably look into that as well. Thanks for watching. Peace.